Hey everybody, my name is Chase Pipes and you're watching Chasing History. We're in the Roman city of Trier, which was one of the largest cities north of the Alps for the Roman Empire. This is an incredible city with an incredible history, which also has one of the largest collections of Roman ruins north of the Alps as well. We've got a lot to show you on this episode, so we're going to get at it right now. Rome, as we know, was an empire of expansion. If you look at Italy, there's really no place to go but north, and north is where Rome went. Between 58 and 50 BC, the Roman military command of Julius Caesar subjugated all of Gaul, and thus the tribal territory of the Celtic Trier as well. The military organization of the conquerors was unprecedented. Erected in 30 BC, the oldest Roman camp in Germany near Trier conveys the idea of this organizational talent. Some of the tribal leaders were not adverse to the Romans and intended to make the best of life under the conquerors initially. Everyday life for the Triers changed very little. Even the burial goods of the time displayed only isolated artifacts of Roman workmanship. A reorganization of Gaul took place under the Emperor Augustus during the remaining 2 decades of the pre-Christian Empire. Trier became the capital of the tribal territory. The local population became increasingly open to the Roman lifestyle, and the Celtic nobility and the city dwellers played a leading role in this transition. As Rome expanded, it needed to figure out a way to make all of these little local places that they were taking over, want to be a part of this greater empire. One of the things that they would do is they would, go into an area, see what they could, take from Rome and put there. Like they would look at a local god and say, oh, well, we have a god very similar to that. And they would place the Roman god and not get rid of their local god. It's actually kind of a cool little scheme that they were playing, and one of the reasons why Rome was able to expand so much. But once Rome came into an area and really took power, they really took power, and that area became Romified, for lack of a better word. And we're going to show you one of the incredible ways in which they did that. So we're in amongst one of the largest collections, or the largest collection, of Roman monuments north of the Alps. But what's fascinating is what these monuments can actually tell us. Behind me are grave markers, and grave markers really tell the story of the life of the person that lived, as a lot of graves try to do that. And because of that, because of these markers, we really know a lot about not only what life was like in the Roman Empire, but the history as well. So how do we know? How do we know what happened when in Rome? Were there paper documents that have made it all the way through? There were a few, but it was really by examination of these grave monuments that really helped to tell the story, and other monuments as well, that really helped to tell the story, and is why we know so much about the Roman Empire, because they carved so much in stone. This assembly of the most significant Roman burial monuments north of the Alps recreates a street of graves, as could be found in the Roman era outside of the gates of cities and, to a lesser extent, near villas in the countryside. Mighty pillars or columns as burial monuments stood there, as did altar-like burial monuments, half cylindrical monuments, and very simple stelae, which were just, small little towers. The wealth of the scenes on the monument provides glimpses into private and business life of affluent Roman families. We meet the deceased on the front side, normally with his wife. An inscription furnishes their names and sometimes even the occupation of the husband, who is portrayed on both sides in his business life and at his leisure and pleasure. The wife, however, appears in her home and simple surroundings. The deceased's pride in their education is manifested on the scenes from the world of mythology and of the gods. The monument was placed as a status symbol for everybody to see. The burial monuments were generally erected during the lifetime of the owner and were very, very colorfully painted, as was very customary for most ancient sculptures. A base coat and paint covered flaws in the stone and also protected it from weathering. Many details in the images were not carried out in the relief, but were left to the painter, who was responsible for the three-dimensional effect and to be able to recognize what is going on in the description. So you see, it's because so much detail was put on these monuments, because the person that had died, they wanted their story to be told. And their story is part of Rome's story. And that's how we know so much about the empire, is because it was all recorded on amazing monuments like these. Much like today, religion played a very important part in Roman life. Rome was a polytheistic religion initially. They worshiped many, many gods. It wasn't until the Christian era of the Roman Empire, very late in the empire's life, that it became a monotheistic, believing in God and Jesus Christ, and religions that we're very familiar with today. Back then, the Romans had temples everywhere to worship gods, all kinds of gods. In this room are examples of some of the many gods that the Romans would worship. And I want to show you some of those things now. According to the Roman philosopher Cicero, the essence of religion lay in the veneration of gods. And archaeologist offers us much evidence to this assertion. Temples and sanctuaries are the places where cults were practiced. The venerated gods were those the Romans introduced, but also deities of the local population as well. The expansion of Roman power also favored taking over foreign gods, organizing them from the eastern area of the Mediterranean together with their priests, occult rituals, and places of worship. However, the gods were not only worshipped, but they were also widely feared, as were the demons of the underworld. Worshippers attempted to ally this dread through magic or influence others for their own gain. Personally, I think this is one of the reasons why Rome was so successful, why the expansion was so successful, at least for a little bit of time, was the incorporation of these local gods. As the Romans would go in, they would look at the local gods in the area and incorporate them, allow them to be worshipped with some slight minor changes. But I think, you got to think about it. What is the most important thing to an individual, to a culture, to a person, but your religion? And the ability to go into an area and say, okay, you can still worship your gods with a few alterations, I think was really important for Rome's expansion, why it was able to expand so rapidly and hold on to areas so tightly. Once those areas were tightly held, incredible engineering, works of art, amazing things came into that area. And for this part of the world, the Roman frontier, Roman Trier, incredible works of art came in, and I want to show you some of the incredible works of art that were created here. In a few decades after an area was conquered or taken over, you start to see the rise of these really large homes all throughout. Roman Trier was no different. These elaborate homes allowed for the inclusion of incredible works of art. One of the things that you wanted to do in your home is to show off your wealth, and what better than these incredible mosaics like we have behind us. These are original pieces that were excavated here locally, and some of them tell some amazing stories, scenes of gods, what's going on, scenes of the amphitheater, things that were of the interest of the person would be represented in these panels. Wealthy Romans in Trier and the surrounding region allowed themselves an upper home for comfort. Rooms for presentation are often equipped with mosaic floors and underfloor heating. The walls of such rooms are often magnificently painted, depending on the fashion. The clients, like we were saying, often chose the mosaic pictures according to their own personal interest. Numerous scenes around the happenings in the amphitheater and the circus show the enthusiasm for the games there. The house owner is able to display his culture and his interest in art by illustration of philosophers and muses. So you see, much like in our homes today, these mosaic floors were a personal reflection of the individual, of the homeowner. Just like how we hang pictures of beautiful scenes of places we visited or what we like or interest, or have things on the wall of our favorite sports team or sporting events or sports stadiums. The same thing is true with these mosaics. A lot of times they were a reflection of who the person was. So not only was it a way to show off their wealth, but a way to show off who they were. And that gives us a great insight to the interest of the day-to-day Romans in their everyday life. Once a town and a city was very well established, then you had people to feed. You had citizens to feed. You had soldiers that were stationed there to feed. You needed agriculture. Agriculture was a huge part of the success of the Roman Empire. So once you got these established city centers, you needed to establish agriculture. You see, agriculture assured the food supply of the Roman Empire and thus occupied a very important position in society. Trier, too, was surrounded by a landscape dominated by agriculture. The development of Trier as a large city and troops being stationed on the Rhine created demand for food and for supplies and for wares for daily use for a huge region. Agricultural goods were produced at numerous farming estates in the local region. Grapes for wine were cultivated on the slopes of the local hillsides. The landscapes created was primarily dominated by the farming estate, also known as the villa. These village-like settlements became the centers of rural area, serving as markets, places of administration, and for local worship. A wide-ranging system of roads connected the various parts of the region. Both roads and waterways permitted widespread trade. So you see, agriculture is hugely important to the success of any civilization. True as it is today, true as it was back then. Especially when you look on these frontier regions, when you go into an area and you say, all right, I'm going to take over this area. All right, you have to send people up there, and then infrastructures have to be created. And one of the most important infrastructures that have to be created is your food supply. So how are you going to do that? You can only mooch so-and-so, off the local population for so long. If you're going to have a large city like Trier was, you're going to need a very large system of agriculture. So the villa system was set up where, Roman soldiers who had, worked for the legions for 25 years gets a piece of land for free, but way off on some far-flung, frontier, like where we're at now. So, they would establish these villas, establish these farms, and those farms would supply the local region and local area and the local infrastructure. One perspective I want to get across to you is that things haven't changed. The same thing is going on 2,000 years ago as happens today. People need to be fed, people need to be housed, people need to be clothed. And that's a way to connect ourselves from this moment to the past, is to think that, really the only thing that's really changed is just the date. We've got a lot more to tell in this episode, so we're going to continue our story of Roman Trier. Directly behind the camera is literally one of the most incredible archaeological and numismatic discoveries of the 20th century, really even in the 21st century. We're talking about the largest hoard of Roman gold coins that were ever discovered. And it was discovered here, in this city, in this town. It is an incredible discovery that we would love to show you on film. However, due to security reasons, we can only show you the images and the pictures that the museum has provided to us for the filming of this episode. The Trier Gold Horde was a surprising discovery made in 1993 at a construction site in the city. With over 2,518 gold coins and a total weight of 18.5 kilos, it is the largest gold hoard from the Roman Imperial world that has ever been found. In 196 AD, during the civil war between Emperor Septimius Severus and his rival Claudius Albinus from Britain, the city of Trier was besieged. In the chaos of war, the owner or administrator of the gold hoard buried it in the cellar of his house. Although the 22nd Legion from Mainz was successfully defended the city, the treasure remained hidden underground until it was rediscovered in the 20th century. Restoration work and scientific analysis have revealed some astonishing results. During the Roman period, the hoard represented an enormous asset. The actual quote-unquote value of the Trier Gold Horde today cannot be estimated because of its uniqueness. It is literally priceless. And I mean, in reality, this is a truly priceless artifact, but what makes it priceless is the story that it can tell, the history that we can learn. We've learned so much about the Roman world through the collection of this hoard. I mean, there are coins that nobody even knew existed, that because this hoard was found, it was able to add to our scientific knowledge. That is why it is so important that finds like this go to museums like this, where it can be studied and understood. Things are still out there to discover. This is 1993 we're talking about. That's not a long time ago. There are still incredible things out there to discover and incredible new stories to tell, and this hoard really represents one of the priceless, not for money, but for the information that it gave to us. So why are we so impressed with the Roman Empire? What makes it so amazing to us? It's the works of art that they created. That's what makes it so impressive. When we look at the things that they manufactured, the things that they were able to create, the glassware, for example, or the pottery, for another example, the tiles, the monumental works of stone, the engineering, all of these things, that impresses us. It's civilization. That civilization is what impresses us. They were capable of creating such monumental works of art and of construction. Why were they able to do that? They were able to do that because they had everything down pat. They had, you didn't have to work as hard to survive as you had in previous eras in history. Because of that, you had time to create monumental things like incredible glassware or remarkable works of pottery with elaborate engraving and painting on it, tiles, to hang on the wall, and of course, the ability to pay someone to write everything down in stone. It's because of this is why we are sometimes so amazed with the Romans, is because we look at these things and we're like, there's no way they were capable of doing that thousands of years ago. But the truth is, they were. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to see perishable items from antiquity. Things like bread and drink, they just don't make it. I mean, you're talking thousands of years that go by. Things disappear in the ground. Soil does its natural thing. In the mid-19th century, archaeological excavations unearthed one of the most incredible finds from the Roman world. This 4th century bottle of wine. This is an original bottle of wine that was still sealed from the Roman era. It's remarkable that the glass itself even made it all the way up to the 19th century, let alone its contents. But if you look on the top and down inside of it, it's got this kind of congealed mass within it. That's olive oil that was used as a sealing layer to protect the wine back in antiquity. That protection back then is what allowed it to make it all the way through today. It's very rare that we get the opportunity to see something like this. It's very rare that we get to see a bottle, let alone its contents. It's just an amazing thing to think that this bottle of wine made it from the Roman era all the way to us today, where we can look at it and wonder in amazement. It's just an incredible thing to literally see the oldest bottle of wine in existence. As you can see from the reconstruction behind me, Trier was one enormous city, one of the larger cities of the Roman Empire. This city was complete with amphitheater, was complete with bathhouses, all of the things that, make a major city a major city. It needed an immense infrastructure in order to maintain its operation. Had a huge wall surrounding the city with 4 enormous gates that allowed entry and exit to the city, but also could be closed off so that the city itself could be defended. One of the things that makes this such an incredible site is you've got such an array of things going on in the city. You've got blacksmiths, you've got tailors, you've got potters, glass makers, glass blowers, all of the things that make, artisans, different types of restaurants, all of the things that make a city, things that make us, want to live in these major centers. The city itself has got an incredible story to it, an incredible rise, and an incredible fall. We're going to go to another part of the museum and talk about that. Now that the Romans had control of the city of Trier and started to expand and grow the complex of the site itself, monumental feats of engineering began to be made, like bridge construction. Behind me are actual original pilings from the original Roman bridge that was built across the river here locally. It's incredible to see how large these structures are, but it just goes to show you the monumental feats of engineering that were taking place here. Not only were bridges being built, but amphitheaters and circuses and bathhouses and all the things that make a city were built right here. The appearance of the city was transformed with the altered political situation and new wealth. After the insurrection of the Batavians and the Triers was suppressed in AD 69-70, the tribal territory was finally pacified. The expansion of the city began really just after that period. The bridge was reconstructed, the forum was expanded, a monumental triumph arch was erected near Mosul. Stone structures gradually replaced earlier mud and half-timbered buildings. An enormous construction program was initiated during the reign of Emperor Antoninus Pius in 138 to 161 AD. The amphitheater and circus were laid out. A new third Mosul bridge was built. Temples and public structures, as well as a gigantic bathhouse, were erected, as well as a wall with about 50 towers and 4 mighty gates encircled the urban area. This city was enormous. It was 1.1 square miles in size. It was huge. No wonder it needed the monumental engineering feats that it needed. Multiple bridges, huge gates, defensive walls, and then of course all the things to sustain the delights of the population, like an amphitheater, like a circus, things of that sort. But not also to mention the sewers, the construction, the trash removal, all of those things. A city this size was incredibly impressive, but not all cities like that are going to survive, or at least are going to last. Eventually, things are going to fall, and that depends on political situations that are up and coming. Not everything lasts forever, and that is, of course, true for the Roman Empire, which is why we talk about it in the past tense. But some places, some cities like Trier here, continued on through into the Dark Ages, into the medieval world, into the post-medieval era, the Renaissance, and into the modern world today. But it was a long way to get there. As its own era between the Roman period and the Middle Ages, late antiquity was marked by political, social, intellectual, religious turmoil. The emperor became the absolute sovereign. Large elements of the population declined into poverty, and Christianity became the state religion. Along with Constantinople in the east, Trier, as the imperial residence in the west, rose to become one of the most important Roman centers. With the words, quote, "It clothes, it feeds, and arms," a Roman poet described that city in those words around 370 AD. It was dominated by the state court with high-ranking civil servants from throughout the empire. Constantine the Great, who's considered the first Christian emperor of Rome, began his political career here in Trier. The unusually large Christian community with the oldest bishop's seat in Germany was unthinkable without proximity to the imperial court. As the empire expanded and grew, political centers needed to move to adjust to the changing times. The center of power moved from Rome itself to Constantinople. Trier itself became a very important city center in the western part of the Roman Empire. But that's not all. That's not the end of the story. Empires may fall, but the people that live in the place continue, and so does the history of that place continues. In the 5th century AD, the Roman Empire ultimately lost military control of the Rhine region and of Gaul. Germanic Franks settled in the then unprotected provinces and took possession of the formal imperial residences and administrative centers here in Trier. Half a millennium of Roman rule thus came to an end. Their contact with the remaining local Gallo-Roman inhabitants, the quote-unquote Romans, acquainted the Franks with urban ways of life suffused with the Christianity of late antiquity. The conversion of the Franks to the Christian faith was fast-forwarded by the baptism of their king of the Merovingian dynasty, Clovis, circa 482 to 511. The religion of the Christians became the essential knot in the process of tying the two peoples and the continuation of a city from one empire to the next. Following the Roman era, Trier, plundered and destroyed, failed to provide the foundation for a structured civic life. The remaining local inhabitants exploited the ruins of ancient structures and transformed them into makeshift living quarters. In the same manner, the ruins of the large public buildings, such as the baths or the storehouses, were occupied and remodeled, so to speak. Construction workers and residents altered and adapted the ancient fields of ruins in this haphazard manner over the course of time until new settlement centers emerged. With the founding of a market outside the fortified cathedral precincts in 958, the urban center was relocated to the northern part of the former Roman city. The new market became, in effect, the nucleus of the future medieval city of Trier. What you see behind me lays Trier's future, from the Roman world into the medieval and into today. What we have is we have what remains, the artifacts, the some of the structures, the parts of sections, monuments, all the things that we've shown you in this episode. Incredible examples of what life was like in the Roman period. But like all things, all good things, they must come to an end. And Rome was something, as an empire itself, came to an end. But the story of this incredible city had not come to an end, and still hasn't. You can walk this city today and explore ancient Roman ruins, one of the largest groups of Roman ruins north of the Alps. It's an incredible opportunity to really get in and amongst history, which we don't really get an opportunity of much in our daily lives. I really urge you to take the opportunity to come to Europe, to come to Germany, to come to Trier, and check out this museum. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. I am overwhelmed. We want to thank the museum for having us out here, for allowing us to check out and to film this episode. We really hope that you take the opportunity to check it out yourself. We've got information at the end of this episode on how you can learn about ticket prices, how to get here, what to see, the layout of the museum, everything that you need to know to check out this incredible archive of history. If you guys have any questions, you can always reach us at Chasing History. And thank you for watching. And remember, history rocks. I don't know how to explain this next one, but it's real. I promise you, what you are about to see is real. So these were hung at the entrances of houses, and it was to, ward off evil spirits for one thing, but, to show strength and fertility of the person that lives in the home. This is Rome. So you may not want to see what you're about to see, but I've got to show you because I've never seen an artifact like it. So if you're a little squeamish, go to the next episode. You've been warned. There you go. This is a giant flying penis dog thing with a penis tail and a penis and a penis and a penis. So this would hang in front of doors and would let everybody that entered your house know that you were a vital person. So yeah, it's a good thing that we don't have those things. Well, I'm sure there are places in the world where we have those things today. But if home entry door knocker wasn't enough, you could have these which hung around your neck, which could let everybody know that you were a strong and vital and procreative person. So yeah, that's telling people in the empire, yes, I can produce many children for Rome. See my necklace. Welcome to my home. Come and be a part of my mighty kingdom. So, had to show you. Romans, man. When in Rome. Mic check 4.
Work, you piece of crap.
Mic check 4. Why won't you work? What is wrong with you and the sound? We're in Roman, we're fucking here, and you're not fucking working with the sound. The reigning emperor of the Roman, the reigning emperor Septimius Severus. So this assembly is of the most significant. Hold on, no, don't stop it and start it. Just pick up where I stop. The reigning emperor Septimius. When the Romans came in and established the reigning emperor Septimius Severus affronted. I'll never get it right.